last week on Legally Kidnapped.
Good evening. Our top story this week. The child protective industry in Oklahoma settles a class action lawsuit against a child advocacy group over the poor treatment of kids in their foster care system. And of course, Children's Rights stands to make millions off the deal, including legal fees and staff with a budget to oversee the state's reform efforts. In Nebraska this week, lawmakers are set to take on the issue of child welfare reform in that state after a failed privatization attempt which caused costs to skyrocket. The Arizona Child Safety Task Force apparently had one lone voice of opposition warning against moving too quickly to separate children from their parents during child welfare reform talks. A New Jersey Assembly panel approves a bill to improve the investigations of child abuse claims in that state. And in California, a new law keeps foster kids in care until age 21 instead of 18 in an effort to cut down on future jail and social service costs. Also in California, foster kids are struggling to graduate after being bounced around from home to home and being forced to change schools several times. The high number of deaths of kids under California's CPS care prompts new legislation from a Fresno Assembly member to fix that problem. Another California Assemblyman is concerned with the high number of Latino kids in the state's foster care system, and deported illegal immigrants will now find it easier to get back into the country after changes made by the Obama administration, which will speed up the process of getting their green cards. In Connecticut, a parent advocacy group is set to educate the state's healthcare providers on the overprescribing of psychotropic drugs in the state's foster care system. The recent hype on the issue of drugging children in foster care has prompted some congressmen to take action, with a CPS agent from Delaware claiming that this is not a problem in that state. And parents are finding it difficult to get their kids' ADHD meds this week as there is a clash between the drug manufacturers who want to maximize their profits and the Drug Enforcement Agency who wants to curb abuse of said medications. In Georgia, a harsh advertising campaign against obesity showing miserable fat kids sets off the politically correct who are worried that such campaigns will create confidence problems in overweight children. In Florida, a private child welfare agency will likely lose a $65.5 million contract after a handful of erroneous deaths of children under its watch. And the leader of the Florida child protective industry is trying to get more money out of the state legislature this year so that he can hire better CPS agents. In New Zealand this week, some school principals are upset because the child protective industry has been placing foster kids with extended family members instead of with foster parents. In China, a mother violates the country's one-child policy by having octuplets. The Czech Republic has decided to ban the use of institutional care for children under 7 years of age. In Ireland, everybody's waiting for the details of a new memorial in honor of the victims of institutional child abuse. And Irish foster parents are up in arms about having to supervise family visits with the kids' real parents. In Australia, the child protective industry failed to protect an Aboriginal child who was living with a known sex offender. In Canada, a couple from British Columbia gets their kids back 4 years after being falsely accused of shaken baby syndrome. The former foster son of the mayor of Vancouver turns himself in after being wanted on drug and weapons charges. A 13-year-old foster kid from Alberta is in police custody after raping 3 young foster kids in his home, and the other kids have been removed as well. And police are calling the case one of the most horrifying cases of sexual abuse that they have ever seen. In England this week, a new law gives fathers the right to see their kids after a divorce and provides harsh penalties including jail time to moms who interfere with visitations. Adoptive parents are getting upset about real parents' abilities to track down their stolen children on Facebook later in life. Social workers are up in arms over this too and are trying to get Facebook and other social networking sites to come to the table to try to stop it. And a father sends a semi-naked photo of his ex-wife with her new lesbian lover to her parents in order to convince them that she left him and that he should have custody. In entertainment news this week, Usher has asked a judge to reject his ex-wife's false claims that he has breached his child custody rules. And the Palestinian version of Sesame Street is canceled after the U.S. Congress freezes $135 million in funding for Palestinian television due to a dispute with Palestinian leaders. In Arizona, a foster mother is charged in the bathtub drowning of an 8-month-old little boy. A California foster mother gets life in prison for the torture of 2 foster kids, including one who died. In Illinois, a pastor's wife is kept in jail on $250,000 bond after having sex with her 16-year-old foster son. And a real mother from Nebraska gets 240 days in jail and her parental rights terminated after attempting to rescue her 2-year-old daughter from the foster care system amidst fears that she would never see her again. In North Carolina, an 18-year-old is being accused of helping a 15-year-old girl who ran away from her foster home by providing her with shelter. In Oklahoma, a judge who got caught collecting adoption subsidies for kids who she gave away to somebody else waives her preliminary hearing in her fraud case. In Texas, Texas police catch the two assholes who stole $20,000 worth of Christmas presents from a church that were destined for foster kids. And in Virginia, police are considering bringing charges against an 8-year-old foster kid who started a fire in the home where they were keeping him. In South Carolina, a mother hooks up with her daughter thanks to Facebook 31 years after being forced to give her up for adoption. An adopted woman from Utah finds her real family through a genealogy website. And in California, a 100-year-old mother reunites with her biological daughter 77 years after giving her up for adoption. Also in California, attorneys are suing 7 government employees for alleged negligence after a young woman was tortured as a teen in her adoptive home. The Colorado Appeals Court is allowing a lawsuit to go forward for 3 siblings who were abused in their home and later in foster care against the social workers who failed to protect them and deceived their adoptive parents about the extent of the kids' problems. A couple from South Carolina who adopted a little girl in violation of the Indian Child Welfare Act vows to fight for her return after being forced by the court to return her to her real father. Attorneys for 10 special needs kids who were fraudulently adopted and abused by a woman who was raking in the dough is pushing for a $68 million settlement from the New York child protective industry and 2 adoption agencies. And also in New York, the actions of a CPS agent who was called for jury duty results in a new trial for a man convicted of sexual abuse after it was found that she and another juror interjected their professional knowledge into the jury deliberations by voicing opinions that were not the subject of expert testimony at the trial. In Texas, a 13-year-old goes missing from a group home and the real mother wants to know how that happened when CPS was supposed to be keeping her safe. Frontier Airlines fails to deliver an unaccompanied minor who is returning home to California after a visit with his father in Colorado after making an unscheduled stop in Nevada, then threatens to turn the kid over to Child Protective Services when his parents couldn't come pick him up within 30 minutes. In Massachusetts, a mom is caught up in a media frenzy after calling the police on her bickering kids who wouldn't stop fighting. And finally, tonight in Florida, 2 lesbians are in a heated custody battle after one donated an egg and had it implanted into the womb of the other, forcing the court to decide who the mother is. For these stories and all the latest dirt on the child protective industry, visit www.legallykidnapped.com. And until next week, this is Baby LK, over and out.